Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity's Jihad in America. Now, despite the recent wave of terror attacks carried out by radical Islamists, Democratic politicians are largely unwilling to even utter the term radical Islam. But in order to combat terrorism, we must fully understand the threat and label it appropriately. Now, my next guest calls herself an anti-Islamist Muslim and wrote about her life in Saudi Arabia before immigrating to the United States in a book entitled In the Land of Invisible Women, A Female Doctor's Journey in the Saudi Kingdom. Dr. Kanta Ahmad is with us, and she officially became a U.S. citizen earlier today. So congratulations, Doctor.
Oh, thank you so much.
We're glad to have you in our family.
Glad to be part of it.
It's a long process, right? How long did it take?
Well, I took a circuitous route, but over 20 years.
Wow. Okay. So what kind of doctor are you?
I'm a pulmonologist and sleep disorder specialist.
Okay. So you grew up in England.
Yes, exactly.
And then you practiced medicine in Saudi Arabia for a number of years, correct?
Right. After I finished my American training, American-trained doctors are in very high demand, and I decided to take a position in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. How are women treated there?
As a physician, I had all the powers and all the opportunities that I would have had here in the United States. But as soon as I stepped away from the bedside in the public space, I had no freedom of movement. I was mandated to veil, meaning not just a minor scarf, but a cover covering my face, clothing and the body. I had to leave my car keys in the United States. No expression of religious freedom that I would recognize. I was raised by pluralistic Muslims.
Are there Catholic churches there, Christian churches in Saudi Arabia?
No, not only no place,
synagogues?
Not only no place for Christian worship, but even symbols of other religions are prohibited. So my nurses were sometimes American, Canadian or Filipino Christians, would conceal their religious symbols, and I had to protect them to make sure that they were not visible, which, even though I was doing it for their benefit, turned me into a kind of an oppressor.
What would have happened if they got caught?
I mean, it's forbidden by the state to bring these things, so I don't know what the penalties are, but it's not safe for those individuals.
Let's talk about a woman that lives there, because women must obey their husbands. They must dress a certain way. They must cover themselves as their husbands dictate. They have the morality police in Saudi Arabia. They can't be seen in public, a woman without a male relative.
They're actually called the religious police, and they are supposedly safeguarding virtue and prohibiting sin. But they are very intimidating. I was intimidated by that. Everything you've said about women is true, though a woman is designated legally as a minor, so a woman does not even have the rights of an adult.
In other words, a man will decide if she goes to work. A man will decide if she goes to school.
Even custody of children is very punitive against women. And if I had an adult female patient, even though she was an adult, I couldn't take medical consent from her. It would have to be from a male who might be a 15-year-old boy.
So you talk about women being invisible. They can't drive cars, can they?
No, and I think that's very symbolic of Saudi Arabia, but they are lacking many other rights too. Now, the women I was mixing with, I was treating women who were Bedouin, but my colleagues were also very privileged, highly educated, many of them educated in the States or in Switzerland or France. But even then, or a woman with my education was infantilized. We were not able to be autonomous, no freedom of travel. Today, that means that when I would enter the country, my passport was belonging then to my employer. Leaving the country requires an exit visa. All of these things are still true in Saudi Arabia.
They also believe that there's no such thing as marital rape in Saudi Arabia.
About this, I don't know. I have not come across that.
So when you say invisible women in Saudi Arabia, in the Saudi kingdom, why do you think there's so few women in America that speak out about that? And number two, do you think that men that grow up in that culture, where they get to tell women how to dress, whether they go to school, whether they go out in public, they can't drive a car, et cetera, do you think those men, if they want to come to America, do you think some of them bring those attitudes with them?
It could be, but I saw something more disturbing than that, and that is that even Western men who were also working there in positions like I was, became comfortable with some of this denigration of women in very subtle ways. Not opening the door for a woman was quite common. Getting accustomed to women being towards the back of the room. I teach male doctors and female doctors. I did that there, I did that here. Women just took a back seat. Now, the Saudi women themselves, many of them professionals, are pugilistic, very assertive, and really are making headway. Many of the women that I knew are changing the country currently.
Based on your book, would you be afraid to go back?
It's not my book that I would be afraid to go back. I have been back after my book was published. It's the fact that I have very positive relations with the State of Israel, that I advocate for an Israeli university, the Technion, that I believe in Israel's right to exist. That would probably, it's made me persona non grata there.
Doctor, good to see you. Thank you for sharing that with our audience.
My
Appreciate it.
pleasure.